There's a startling new account by a top Pence aide offering fresh insight into the dangerous mindset of Trump's lawyers and their support for a coup on January 6th, even as the violent attack was happening. According to the Washington Post, Pence aide Greg Jacob wrote a draft of an op-ed that he ultimately decided not to publish. But it said that as he and the vice president hid from the Capitol insurrectionists, some of whom were making verbal threats against Pence's life, the Pence aide received an email from Trump lawyer John Eastman. We've talked a lot about him here. Eastman blamed the violence on Pence's refusal to block the certification of Biden's win. Greg Jacob responded that a, quote, siege was happening, and Eastman wrote back this, quote, "The siege is because of you. And your boss did not do what was necessary to allow this to be aired in a public way so that the American people can see for themselves what happened," referring to Trump's claims of voter fraud. In that unpublished op-ed, Jacob wrote that by sending the email at that moment, Eastman displayed a shocking lack of awareness of how those practical implications are playing out in real time, and that Eastman continued to press the Pence team with a, quote, barrage of bankrupt legal theories. John Eastman is expected to be subpoenaed by the January 6th committee this week for his role in advising Trump on how to overturn the 2020 election. Joining our conversation, Mike Schmidt, New York Times Washington correspondent, as well as an MSNBC national security contributor. Carol Leonnig is here. Mike, you said on Friday that Eastman's having a hard time finding a lawyer. Is this body of his conduct part of the reason why?
There's a thing about Eastman that is sort of hard to explain and define, but it is truly like talking, when you talk to him, talking to someone that is really on a different planet and speaks a different language. He really believes that the election, there was massive voter fraud. He has dedicated himself to trying to uncover this in the aftermath here, either through suits that he's bringing or following up on investigative tips. He told me he wanted to write a book about this. He really, and even after we ran the story, was angry or disappointed at us for not acknowledging the fraud claims and for the fact that the fraud that we say that there was no widespread fraud that changed the election. And that's how he sees the world. And it is a very different thing than I've really ever found in my reporting because it's such a different type of reality. And here's someone who's a college professor, someone who had been seen in conservative legal circles as an expert in different parts of constitutional law and has just a completely fundamentally different view of the world than I guess most of the people on the show. Well,
Carol, I think the reporting that developed over the weekend suggested he had a fundamentally different version of the truth from the vice president. And I want to read more from the unpublished op-ed. Jacob wrote in his draft article that Eastman and Giuliani were part of a cadre of outside lawyers who had, quote, spun a web of lies and disinformation in an attempt to pressure Pence to betray his oath of office and the Constitution. Now that the moment of immediate crisis has passed, the legal profession should dispassionately examine whether the attorneys involved should be disciplined for using their credentials that Mike talks about to sell a stream of snake oil to the most powerful office in the world wrapped in the guise of a lawyer's advice. Jacob is calling out exactly what Mike's describing, that you walk into the Trump Oval Office with a degree and you could sell Donald Trump anything.
I hope I don't butcher this this metaphor, but it's like chicken or egg, snake oil or snake. Was Eastman giving what Trump the snake oil that he demanded? Did he catch the Trump fever of believing there was a fraud because the president was summoning him and listening to him? It's hard to know. But I think what's really striking that you focus on here, Nicole, is that Eastman's view of reality was divorced from reality when it came to January 6th. He's sending an email to a legal advisor to the vice president about the viability of whether or not Pence can decertify the election while people are chanting for the execution of that said vice president. The vice president is in hiding. He has a team of Secret Service agents who are begging him to please let them get the heck out of Dodge through a back door so they can save his life. It's a strange time to be sending an email saying you should have allowed for a public airing of this legal matter.
Mike, I want to show you something Adam Kinzinger said about basically the fact that he and Liz Cheney stand alone at calling out folks like Eastman.
It's not really handing a win as much to Donald Trump as it is to the cancerous kind of lie and conspiracy, not just wing anymore, but mainstream argument of the Republican Party. This is not on, the 10 of us that voted to impeach. It's not on Liz Cheney and I to save the Republican Party. It's on the 190 Republicans who haven't said a dang word about it, and they put their head in the sand and hope somebody else comes along and does something.
I mean, Adam Kinzinger could have been Jim Comey after he was fired, could have been Don McGahn after we learned he was listened to, could have been any one of the Republicans who sort of stared at that blockade of zombie Republicans who in the old days had no qualms calling out my old boss, George Bush or John McCain or any other party standard bearer, but continue to this day not to do so for Donald Trump.
Yeah, this is the stranglehold that we often talk about how Trump has the party in a way in his pocket today, more so than at any other point, perhaps even more so than when he was president of the United States, and the way that they have fallen into line what he's wanted, even though he does not have his rallies on mainstream television and that he is called out for his lies. That has not changed anything about how the Republican base views him. And Kinzinger and how his political career ended in the past few days is just the most recent stark example of that. The Jeff Flakes of the world are long gone. They're now ambassadors for Joe Biden. And Trump continues to move on in a way that is, it's incredibly profound and more great today than I ever thought it would be.